4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to HVAC Success Secrets Revealed, a show where we interview industry leaders and disruptors, revealing the success secrets to create and unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Now your hosts, Thaddeus and Evan.
Hey, welcome back to another HVAC Success Secrets Revealed with Thaddeus and Evan, your HVAC internet marketing experts. Today, we've got Tom Howard on the show, and I am very, very excited for this episode because it seems like every second or third guest happens to mention in their off the banter kind of conversation that you in some way had an impact on their business. And you always seem to get mentioned in conversations, whether it's on our show or other podcasts I've listened to, as having an impact on people. And so I'm super excited to have this conversation here with you today and dive into it. And for the few people, I guess, that do not know who Tom Howard is, he is the VP of Customer Experience at Service Titan. He's also the owner of Lee's Plumbing, Heating, and Air, as well as a couple other businesses that you've gotten into recently as well. But he got to start at the age of 15 in the industry, and he has grown up since then, managed to step away for a little bit from working in the heating and air space, went to school, came back into it again, and took over Lee's, I believe it was 2011, 2012?
Yeah, about 2011, I came back as general manager, and 2012, the Lee family sold it to me. Yeah.
Right. And has been absolutely crushing it since then, growing it from 2.5 million, I think it was, when you
about
first
2 million,
started taking it over, to now this year.
Should do about 30.
And now projecting to do about 30 million this year. Yeah.
That location.
So not bad growth.
Yeah.
Right. Out of a single location too. And you're doing incredible things with that, but also in mentorship and helping people and helping shape other owners in the industry through your work with Service Titan, having been brought into there. So I can't wait to get into it today. Some of the biggest lessons that you've learned along the way. We'd love to talk about failures and things that have helped set the stage for the success and the achievement that you've had so far. So I guess walk us through a little bit of that journey, running from a 15-year-old getting started in the industry all the way up to now running Lee's and being the VP with Service Titan.
Sure. I mean, some guy came to hook up a water line on my fridge at my mom's house when I was 15. And I was like, hey, can I have a job? My mom told me at the time that I had to get a job when I turned 15. So, I was basically asking anyone that would allow me and let me in. I basically cleaned tools and delivered parts. Like when I say delivered, I was 15. I was really handing them parts. And it was like a 3-person operation at the time. I'd clean out the trucks at the end of the day. After school, I'd ride my bicycle over to his house and, do that kind of stuff. And he had a shop out back. But anyway, they had a 2-year program in high school there for air conditioning. And I went through that. And I got out. Long story, but I ended up moving to California. I lived in Europe for a couple of years and then came back and went to California, decided I should go to college. I was a religious missionary in Europe. And when I got to California, they're like, oh, you could sell air conditioning. If you can try to sell religion, you could sell air conditioning. Well, it was a bad assumption on their part. I was a terrible salesperson, but Lee's hired me and gave me a shot and had me doing back office operation stuff pretty quickly. And then I told the owner that I was going to business school, so I never had to do air conditioning ever again. And one thing led to another. I ended up coming back and realizing how much I hated it in the finance world, which is what I got my degree in. And the Lee family was gracious enough to give me the opportunity to purchase it, which kind of, they let me purchase it on a note payable, so I didn't have to put a down payment. And then I ended up partnering with one of the members of the Lee family, and then they eventually sold me all of it years later. So it worked out. Oh, I guess I should say the service time. We joined our company, purchased Service Titan software in 2015, and at the time we were about 3 to 5 million annual revenue. I think it was when we signed up, we were about 3. When we were that year we went to 15, but we didn't have it the whole year. Or sorry, we went to 5. And then the next year we went to about 9.4. So we had great growth during that time period. As the company got bigger, I started helping my friends in the industry, and then eventually someone started paying me, and all of a sudden it was like this consulting company that we called Blue Collar Profits at the time. Most of the people were Service Titan users, and Service Titan eventually called me and said, "Why don't you stop consulting and just work with us?" And I said, "Okay, but I don't want to sell my companies." And they said, "That's fine. Just come on board." So the crazy thing is now I got companies in Fresno, California is my biggest one. That'll do about 30 million this year. I've one in Sacramento that'll probably do about 3 million. One in Las Vegas that should do a little over 20 million. And then one in Beverly Hills that should do about 12. And then we got another location that I can't mention the city right now, but it's opening probably next week. But I have partners in all of them except my largest one. That one's I just own, the $30 million one in Fresno.
So if anybody's doing some math on that, that's $65 million in total revenue. In case anybody's wondering.
The funny thing is I don't add them together because I think of them separately because I have partners in most of them except like I said, Fresno, my larger one. It's been a fun ride. But Service Titan allows me, I basically spend the time about 5:30 a.m. or 6 a.m. to about 8 or 9. I work on that stuff and have Zoom meetings with my teams. And then after 8 or 9 a.m., I work on Service Titan until Ara, the CEO, tells me it's okay to go to bed. No, just kidding. Although there have been some late night phone calls where I get a call at 11 o'clock at night, like, "Hey, I need you to talk to me for a minute." I'm like, all right, I guess we're doing this now.
Yep.
So it's been fun. It's kind of crazy going from
there's so much to unpack
to 2,500 people in one company.
Right.
At Service Titan.
Yeah. No kidding. No, there's so much to unpack from that, like in terms of productivity and time management. But I think where I want to start from that, one question I like to ask guests sometimes is what does success really mean to you, and what does it look like for you? I mean, the name of the show is Success Secrets Revealed, right? So I'm curious, in your definition and in your mind, what does success look like to you?
Yeah, I think, we all have our different goals when it comes to success. And, Evan, you just mentioned you were in Dominican Republic last week. You were there for a couple months, right? I don't know if that's okay to say on here.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I think what success looks like to me is to be able to go where I want to go and do what I want to do when I want to do it. With Service Titan, the first couple of months I had to be in there all the time, like 12 hours a day in the office. And then on the weekends I was working from home. I mean, I was working 7 days a week for the first 6 months. We had a lot of things we were working on at the time. Lately though, I've been working from home because our office is being renovated and things like that. And at least in the LA location, we can't get into the building right now. And that's allowed me to kind of move around, do things. I can go to different contractors' businesses I was in a contractor's business in Australia 2 weeks ago. It was awesome. I've been in businesses in Canada. Yeah. From, Calgary to Toronto to whatever. I've been in shops in Texas and Florida. And I love that, and being able to go and do those things and meet with people is fun. And I was talking to the CEO the other day, Ara, and he's like, what do you do? What do you like? That kind of stuff. And I told him, I said, I've heard these American football players say, I practice, I get paid to practice, but I play for free. And I told him on the phone, I said, look, I get paid to do paperwork and answer people's questions, that kind of stuff, but I do contracting for free. Like I don't even have to be paid to do that. If I get to go visit people's contracting businesses and help turn their businesses around or whatever it is, like if I had all the time in the world, I would get to every one of them. To me, that's the fun part. And hopefully I never have to do it for free, because hopefully I always make money at it. But I'd still, that's the cool stuff. That's the fun part. I think that's what really success is, getting to the point where you just love it.
Well, and the other part of that people don't see, and you've alluded to it, is you're working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. Those are some long hours, and it's, success is great and it's fine, and everybody already sees the end result. I get paid to practice, but I play for free. It's the sacrifice that goes into it, and it also doesn't get talked about a lot, in my opinion, at least in business circles, to say, hey, what are the sacrifices that you've made? What have you done to be able to make it to where you are at now? They only see the end result of a successful entrepreneur who has that freedom to be able to come and move. So I'm like and I guess in going back to, you had some purchases of some businesses, but you've also started up a few new ones. What would you say has been the biggest, I guess, challenge or obstacle for you in dealing and setting that up? And also, when you see that with contractors and businesses, what are some of the things that you're seeing?
Yeah, I got a couple things. As you were saying that, something came to my mind, and I think it's when I first got into Lee's, which is the one that my heart's in. It's in Fresno. That's the one I've been in the longest, and the one I worked for before I went to college. I gotta say, first of all, before I tell you that story, have you guys read the book The Messy Middle? It's the guy that sold Behance to Adobe. He sold his company for $150 million to Adobe, and then he became a VP or some other director, something for Adobe. Anyway, he talks about, he's like, hey, everyone sees it how, I started Behance, and then I think it's like 6 or 8 years later, he sold it for $150 million. And they just assume it's like this line that goes up, and then you get the $150 million mark and you sell, and you're such a genius. He's like, they don't see that, we almost went bankrupt 4 times. Here's all the things, just goes through all the catastrophes they hit, and all the hard times they had, and all the garbage they had to put up with, and the employee issues, and he's like, people see that, and I'm reading this book, I'm thinking, gosh, this is definitely what people see. They see, oh wow, this company's going to do over 30 million this year, and this one, you added them all up at 65, right? And I'm like, I don't even think that way, right? And they don't realize, every day you go through this roller coaster of man, I'm a genius, totally great idea. The next day, oh my gosh, what a moron I am. Why am I even in this industry? I totally how stupid am I? I can't believe this is such an idiot. And the next day, oh my gosh, I'm on top of the world. We're killing it. We're killing it. It could be literally one install that sells. I get an alert on my phone, telling me from service time, hey, you sold a job. We're oh yeah. We're great. Totally, we're making it happen now. Buy 50 more trucks. It's gonna happen. Trust me. Put it all on black. Anyway. Anyway, I go back, and the biggest one was when I first got into Lee's. Like I said, the Lee family was gracious and let me buy it on a note payable, so I didn't have a down payment, but I had to make the monthly payments, and it was a recession at the time, so things weren't easy to come by. And literally for a while, what they don't see is that I was the owner and president of Lee's, which I loved to pound my chest about back then, and I was working for $10 an hour at night on a farm, driving a tractor, disking fields.
Wow.
Against me to provide for my family. It was just this is what I got to do to make sure that we have enough money to make the payments. And there's times in your life where you have to work harder, less. Right now, I don't work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week anymore. I do work 12 hours a day very typically, but it's 5 to 6 days a week. I pull a day off and really spend that with my family, which I really appreciate. My wife knows that hey, we have plans of this is how much time I'm going to spend with the family at this time. When we got into service time, I said, hey, the first couple of months are going to be really bad because it's a new job and I got to get ramped up. And then I started January 6th, 2020. And then March 14th, 2020, lockdown happened and the whole world turned upside down. Service Titan asked me to, get on and be the voice at the time of a lot of these things, run webinars on how to help people get through COVID. And at the time we had the PPP loans coming out. So we were doing webinars on how to help people do that. Our legal counsel was actually on there helping on a live webinar for contractors. And, we're just running around the clock. I remember working with the team. It was 11 o'clock at night. The CEO himself is literally sitting there writing a playbook with me on what contractors should do to get through COVID. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, it was just like round the clock for months. So first 6 months, we just had to, at service time, 2 months of just hard work. And then 3 or 4 months of just trying to battle the stuff that was happening with COVID to keep our contractors alive. Like, we only get paid as service time if you have technicians running jobs and making money. Like, we have to help do that. So anyway, I think the thing is that every contractor needs to know there is just time where it's going to be hard, and you just have to put in the work. Like, it doesn't mean it's going to last forever. There is an end in sight. I got to the point where before I started consulting, just my company was running on autopilot, and I left once and did 3 vacations in a month. I did one to Dominican Republic, one to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, and one to Hungary, Budapest, Hungary. Like, and no one cared. And then there's other times where it's like, you got to put your head down and get it done. I have this thing behind me. It said this painting, it says everyone wants to eat, but few are willing to hunt. The funny thing is that's a male lion. That's what makes me laugh. Male lions actually don't hunt. It's the women that do.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's an ironic poster, and that's why I leave it up in my house. But I think that's you just have to know things are going to hit the fan sometimes. And even the best companies, you go into them, and I've seen hundreds of companies. I've consulted for companies at 500,000 in sales and for companies at 300 million in sales. And all of them have problems. Like, if you're running into a problem in your business, great. Like, that's what everyone runs into. Like, just take it as an opportunity to learn and get through it and go to the next one. Like, you just think that, oh, that guy's $1 billion in sales. And I've been to companies that are $1 billion in sales, by the way. They got problems too. And you think that everything's just working great because they're at $1 billion in sales a year. And I can guarantee you there's stuff going wrong. That's why we got managers. That's why we pay them to manage stuff when things go wrong. So that was my long-winded answer.
Sorry. No, I mean, as the it's all good. As the great philosopher and poet Biggie Smalls once said, "More money, more problems." Right. So as you grow, the problems don't get easier; they just continue to get bigger and bigger. And I love the Jim Rohn quote as well. Like, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. Right. Yeah. Dive in and get better and improve. And I've heard you talk about this in the past too, about how much entrepreneurs read. And the most successful, highest achieving entrepreneurs, they're constantly looking to improve and get better. And I think that was a goal of yours as well, was to step out your knowledge game, your reading game, and continue to improve that way. What are you reading right now?
This one probably isn't interesting to you guys, but it's called Connected Strategy. It's I got to Service Titan and I realized I don't know anything about SaaS companies, software as a service.
Yep.
So I've been reading, things on, in this case, it's basically, it's from the Harvard Business Review. It's got a bunch of information about how businesses have to maintain continuity and connection, how you work together to produce a product. But I try to read contractor books and SaaS books throughout the year. But I think what's really interesting. Can you hear me okay at this point, guys?
Yeah, I still hear you.
Okay. With what Evan said about more money, more problems, and especially for people from our generation, that's kind of a quote that we all remember. I noticed that as you're growing, your problems will get bigger, right? Because you're a bigger company, and the problems you had at 10 million sales you'll have different problems at 20 million. But what I really notice is people's company will continue to grow until the problems grow larger than their ability to manage. And so you do 2 things. 1, you can just pray that you don't have any problems, or 2, you can increase your management skill. Those are the only 2 ways to grow. And I think BDR consulting firm, I've never used them, but I saw a presentation by them before, so I'm not endorsing or anything, but they are a partner of Service Titan. I've seen them. They talk about a wall that you hit, I have $1 million wall, a $2 million wall, a $5 million wall, a $10 million wall. Each of us in contracting, these walls that we hit, we run into them because it's like, maybe I can manage it if I can micromanage. Well, at Micromanage, you can get to about $1 million of revenue before you can't do that anymore because you have to get past that. At $2 million in revenue, you kind of have to have processes and procedures for everybody. At about $5 million in revenue, you've got to have kind of a management staff of some kind, like service manager, install manager. You can't be doing all alone. And at 10 million, you kind of have a middle management with like a GM and a, middle management. And there's just different levels you have to have at each one. And when I saw the BDR walls thing, I was like, that's interesting. And I'm starting to see them now at the 20 million mark, 50 and about 100. It seems like if you get past 50, they'll go to 100 pretty quickly. And the reality is that I get constantly terrified that I'm going to hit that next wall and not be strong enough to get through it. And the only way to do that is just like the playing football. It's like you can get to game day and hope that you're strong enough, or you can start practicing now. And so when game day comes, you're ready, hopefully. So, yeah.
A lot of wisdom in there.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah. If
HR guy is pipe pumping in here a little bit.
Right.
I love what he had to say here. Tom, been trying to reach out to you about my extended warranty.
Yeah.
And absolutely,
this
this runs parallel with employee management issues, and that's exactly it.
Yeah.
He knows me. He's a cool guy.
I like him. He was a guest on our show. I want to say over a year ago, just around that year timeline.
Yeah. Ian.
Yeah, it was about that.
Yeah.
I gotta say though, if you're looking for books on certain things, one of them that was pretty cool was it's called Trust Me, I'm Lying. That was it's a marketing book. You guys might like it given your background there. Same guy that wrote Growth Hacker Marketing. Gosh, I forget his name. Yeah, that was one of the most shocking books I ever read about marketing. And then another really cool one that I read recently is called $1 Trillion Coach. And it's about the guy that coached. He was an executive coach for like Steve Jobs and Sergey Brin and all those, multi-billion-dollar companies. Yeah. Google if you knew. And Steve Jobs, he wrote another one called Apple. I don't know if you guys, they're pretty big ones. But
no, I was trying to look up the Google who wrote Growth Hacker Marketing
or Trust Me, I'm Lying.
Neil, no, that's not Neil Patel. He happens to have a blog article that shows up that's about growth hacking itself. But anyways,
yeah, it's Ryan Holiday. Trust Me, I'm Lying. Confessions of a Media.
Well, a question I wanted to ask you was, and sorry, the audio is really messing up here on my end. It's my computer. I think you sound good on Facebook. I checked that, so everything's good there. But one question I did want to ask was the role of mentors. I think it's very rare that someone ever would achieve anything great without having people who are leading them and providing value to them, coaching to them. And I'm curious what role mentors played for you to help you get to the level that you're at today, that's caused you to have this same feeling of wanting to give back and wanting to contribute and coach and offer consulting and be in the position that you are today. So who were some of those big mentors for you in the beginning, and what were some of the biggest lessons you took away to get you to where you're at today?
I mean, I think we have different mentors at different levels, right? So like my first mentor was my first boss, and his name was Micah Ames. And I look back and I'm like, gosh, no one would see him as a mentor. I can promise you that. My mother was like devastated when she got to know him better, like who I was working for. But the guy, it was a 2 or 3 person shop. I mean, he was drunk half the time I was with him. He would, when I did get old enough to get my license, it'd be like Saturday morning, we got to go run jobs, and he's not at his house. And, he's calling me to go pick him up, wherever he passed out at some person's house, and got to go pick him up and get him in the truck so we can go run calls. And he'd make sure that like I got rid of the cocaine out of the truck before we went, so we wouldn't get busted for possession. Like this guy was it. But the reality is growing up, you know, I remember one time we ran out of gas money, and we're like in the middle of New York State, upstate New York. We're trying to get back. Our shop was in New Hampshire. And I'm like freaking out. You know, I'm like 17, you know, 16, 17. I'm like, dude, we have no cash. We have no way of getting home. Like, what am I going to do? Call my mom and ask for money for my boss to get home? And he's like, idiot, you know? And we just like walked over to this, we had pulled in, it was a gas station area and totally out of gas. And in that parking lot, there was a restaurant. He just walks in the restaurant and he's like, hey, I'm Micah. You know, I do refrigeration. By the way, do you have anything going on in the back you need help with? And every restaurant has something going on, you know, if they want tweaked or whatever. And they usually want to do it for real cheap because they're usually operating on very slim margins. So he walked us back like, yeah, this freezer is not working right or whatever. And the TXV wasn't right. And it was needed adjustment in Micah's words, and some refrigerant, whatever. Sure enough, he walks out there with $250 in his hand, which now I look at $250 average ticket's terrible, but $250 is more than enough. You know, gas at the time was like $1 a gallon, $1.50. Yep. And you know, we had plenty. And what it taught me is that if you have a trade and you have tools and you have a willingness to work, like you can do whatever you want. Like there's the sky's the limit. We're in the middle of nowhere with no gas money, and bam, we got $250 in our hand in a minute. Like, and you know, his quote TXV adjustment. Now, who knows what that really was? And like 2 pounds R22, which is like
always the TXV, isn't it?
Yeah, $2. You know, $2 a pound for R22 at the time. We put in like 2 pounds worth probably, and maybe a pound, and charge them $250, and we're off on our way. It just shocked me, like, wow, you can do that. And that totally changed. Like when I grew up, it was always about, Tom, go to college and you'll have a steady job and just do whatever your employer tells you to do. Like, okay. And that's the only way to make money. And then I learned that. And then Micah was totally different, obviously. And I really appreciate what he did there. And then, you know, as I got bigger, I think one of the things I did do is that one of the smarter things I did, and not all the things I did were smart, but this was one thing, was I went, and anyone that would let me in their shop, I didn't care where it was. I'd buy a plane ticket. People like, oh my gosh, it's expensive. I fly across the country. It's like, what? It's like $500 for a plane ticket and $200 for a hotel. Like, just do it. $700. You're going to leave there with an idea that's going to make you $50,000 or $100,000 as long as you implement. Right. Mm-hmm. And so every single shop that would let me in, I'd show up, and it didn't matter how small it was, how big it was. They're always, even if they were much smaller than me, they were doing something right that I wasn't doing. And one shop that I stole, even the saying I stole was, he said, go out there and do a little R&D, which, you know, in software is research and development. And it was Ryan Snow that told me this one out of Western Heat and Air in Utah. And he's like, no, we call it R&D is rob and duplicate. And so we go, he's like, chances are somebody's doing it smarter, faster, and better than you. Just go figure it out. Just watch what they do. So some of the guys I look up to the most in this industry, like Dave Geiger of Horizon, I have nothing but good things to say about him. The people at the Wrench Group, like Kevin Comerford, has been awesome. Aaron Gaynor out of Ohio, he's got an awesome plumbing company out there that's really shown me a lot. Tommy Mello, A1 Garage Door, just awesome things. I mean, all these people that I've watched and seen what they do, and you know, it's just like, it's shocking. Right. I mean, gosh, looking at Horizon now doing hundreds of millions, and to find out that in the early 2000s they were like 8 million in revenue, it's just mind blowing to me. You know, it just opens up my eyes.
Well, and you mentioned it perfectly. It's your willingness to work. And if you have that ability to actually just go forward and learn how to do it, Sorry, I'm getting an echo in my ear from my other earbuds. We had some technical difficulties earlier, and so I've been adjusting things as we go. But like you also mentioned, a lot of people go with the college and university route. Well, it's not necessarily the best option for somebody. I mean, I know that I have my degree, right back there, hanging out, but most of the things that you can do and accomplish in your business, you can find somebody somewhere that you said has done it before, right? And you've mentioned a lot of high level individuals and high level names. And so if you're listening to this, and you're like, well, I've never been able to reach out to them, find somebody who's in a similar spot ish to you. And I don't mean like similar spot like as in where you're currently at in your business, but somebody that you can reach out to and have them and find them as a mentor and a coach for you and your business, because it's going to catapult you into new levels of success. And in looking at that, so if somebody's going to say, okay, I want to find a coach, I want to find a mentor, what are some of the steps that they should do, and what should they look for in having a mentor?
I think a couple things is like one, go to conferences, and just don't be afraid to start talking to people, and don't be afraid to be open. One of the ones that I worked with a lot is called SH Mechanical in NorCal. They're in like the Sassoon City area, and the guy, literally, we were at a conference. I was listening to a guy talk, and he could tell that I knew what the guy was talking about already, and I was kind of bored with it. And he said, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And he said, "I have questions for you about this." I was like, "Okay." And he didn't know the basics. I mean, they were doing $300,000 a year in revenue, not profit. And it's like him and his wife, and that's it. And we're sitting at this conference, and he was like so open to just talking and asking questions and not afraid to look stupid. Like this guy puts his pride aside and just does not care, if he looks dumb. So he'd ask every question. And we walked out in the hallway, and I was kind of working with him on an Excel spreadsheet and showing him some basic, we're talking basic stuff on like margin calculations and stuff like that. And he ended up having me just send him the spreadsheet. This is like 6-7 years ago. And, the guy called me up and told me, it's like, this is about a year ago. He calls me. He's like, "Hey, Tom," and he's in his 30s. He's like, no, he's probably 40 now. But he's like, I'm dealing with my retirement planner, and I need to make sure that I can make 50 grand a month personal income when I retire. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, what I didn't realize is he's almost there. Just looking at him like, this guy went from like 300,000 in revenue, to wanting to make like 50 grand a month in retirement. And by the way, he's not doing it through traditional means. He did get to the point where he's doing 1.5 million in EBITDA one year. And literally he's almost in tears when he told me like how great it was. I was like, dude, that is amazing. It's a smaller commercial company though. It's very niche. They're doing like 4 million in revenue with 1.5 million in EBITDA. So those percentages are awesome. Actually, I'm looking at a plaque on the wall. It's the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies in the US. It's his, for that plaque, it's his company. And he sent it to me with a nameplate on the bottom and basically thanking me for helping him out. And I look back and I'm like, if I had been more open to people and been less afraid to look stupid and just ask, I would have learned even more, right? Like he went from here to here, like just in no time flat because he just asked. And he had no problem. He called me 2 days ago, actually, just to talk about stuff. I hadn't talked to him in 6 months. Anyway, I'd say go to conferences, start talking to people, and you'd be surprised at how many were just willing to let you in. Just ask them, can I come to your shop? Usually they're like flattered that you want to do it. And usually they're not closed off. And there's a few jerks in our industry that act like this is a scarce resource and there's just not enough in this world to go around. So if you find their secret sauce, you're going to take it over. The funny thing is some of these companies are doing like 10 million in revenue. One of them was doing 10 million in revenue, and it was in a town in a city that had about 2.5 million people. And I was like, I calculated the market potential of this area. It's $1 billion. And you can probably get 25% market share in $1 billion area. So technically you could get up to 250 million in revenue in this city. You have 10 million. You have 1% market share and you think you own it. Like guys, there's plenty to go around. If we share our ideas and stuff like that, we're only going to grow and keep getting bigger. It's not that big of a deal. So anyway, go to those places. Don't be afraid to look stupid. The conferences were the biggest thing for me because that's where we meet, we talk, we go everywhere. And, Yeah. Usually after every conference, I take away 1 or 2 ideas. Make sure you implement them, though. If you don't, it's just useless. I cannot tell you how many people go and ask a million questions and they go back to their shop and they don't do anything. A year later, they're coming back and asking the same questions. So,
well, and you look at like a couple things that I noticed in there, less afraid to be stupid. That resonated with me because like a lot of times people ask questions and or they don't want to ask the question because they feel embarrassed.
yeah.
Just ask, as Roland Littenberg, with House Call Pro, just ask, right?
Yeah.
Which is a big thing. But the other part is an abundance mindset. Sorry. The abundance mindset is a key thing. And I think it's severely lacking with a lot of people happening there. So anyways, that was kind of my thing. I'm getting the echo again. So if you're trying to figure out why it's tripping me out. I don't know if you've ever had the echo before when you're talking, you can hear yourself right after. So when you go to a conference, what are some of the best ways or an event, to maximize your effort there? Are you looking to go and meet everybody, or are you creating a list of a few people that you want to go chat with? Is there some specific questions that you're going to have before you go to one of those events?
Yeah. I mean, every once in a while, especially if I'm going to an event and they've got speakers that I know what they're doing. Yeah. I'm going to go with a couple of questions for those listed speakers. But I mean, I get stuff out of the speakers in the event. Usually the speakers are pumping me up and I'm getting excited. I think the most value I get is out of the other people there. And usually I don't know who's going to be there. So usually I got to go in with an open mind, just talk to everybody. I do this though. If I take a bunch of people from my company, let's say 3 or 4 of us, I demand that we don't sit at the same table. All of you need to go sit at a different table. I don't want you to sit together at all. You should be talking to everyone else at this conference, not each other. You got all the time in the world to talk to each other back at the office. Spend the time at the conference meeting other people. It's so crazy when I go to these conferences and I see companies, because I can tell they're the same uniform, sitting at the same table. I'm like, you guys just wasted your time at the conference. So I try to get to as many people as I can. And I also try not to pair up with one person and then just spend the whole conference with them. I'll pair up with them for an hour, 2 hours, maybe 3 if they've got a lot of content that we're getting. But if I've already got a plan to like go visit their shop in 2 weeks, I'm like, great, awesome, thanks so much, I really appreciate it. And then I'm going to the next person and I'm going to hook that up and get going. Another thing, I try to provide value while you're meeting with them. If you've got other ideas that you want to share with them, if they really want to talk, let them talk, but try to provide value, especially if you're going to their shop. Make sure you're being appreciative and doing something while you're there. It just reminds me, I've got my new GM and director of marketing are at 2 different shops in Phoenix today, just visiting and learning stuff. I gotta thank them for doing that. Just make sure when you do that, you're providing that afterwards and not look like a jerk. I did 2 weeks ago. I forgot to thank somebody after leaving and I didn't, so screwed that up. But yeah, you're still working that echo thing, aren't you, Thaddeus?
Yeah, I was trying, and I think Evan's a little delayed. It's just one of those ones that it's fucked up today. It's the only way to describe that. So let's jump into our random question generator. We have a random question. We key that up, and it is one of the favorite parts of our show. So we have 3 different ones and for you to choose from. So do you want door 1, door 2, or door 3?
Let's do number 3.
Number 3. What's the most difficult thing about being you?
Being bald, I think, is one of them. I feel bad saying like difficult things about being me, because there's like someone on this call that's like, they've got cancer, their spouse left them, their dog died, like everything's going wrong, and I'm gonna sit here complaining from my house in Southern California about my problems. I don't, I think besides male pattern baldness is probably time management. I think separating your time to do what you should be doing. And I think there's good things in life. There's better things in life. There's the best things in life. And I think if we fill our lives up with the good things, you're going to miss the better things and the best things. So for me, that's really tough.
Taking that good, better, best and flipping it in a completely different way. You know, you talk about presenting options. Well, what options are you presenting yourself in your life? So I mean, you've read a lot of books. You've probably heard with Simon Sinek, Start With Why, and you've read it.
I want to point out, by the way, he's coming to our Pantheon conference and speaking there on the 21st of April.
Nice.
Totally stoked.
I would love to hear him live. I know I've listened to his books. Phenomenal in terms of starting with why. So let me ask you this: what's your higher why? Why do you do what you do? What drives you to put in these days?
I think, I was asked that. We have executive coaches at Service Titan. All they do is basically, his main job is to get in my head and make sure that I'm doing well and like pushing harder and getting better and that kind of stuff. And this came up like last week. And I think the biggest thing is I think I have a chip on my shoulder from when I was a kid. And, when I was in high school, and it was a large high school. And if you were in the vocational technical program, you were seen as like the dumb kid, right? And I did really well in my other grades and my other classes, but I had this job and I got a raise at my job if I go take the classes. So I was really mad about being looked at as like the dumb kid. And I think what happened is that later in life, I got to the point where you want to like prove people wrong all the time. I think a lot of us in this industry have that, probably all of us have a little bit of that or a lot of it, depending. I think the biggest thing that drives me, because people ask me like, well, why are you working at Service Time if you're making good money in your companies? I'm like, well, the reality is that sure, I have an equity package and that is doing well so far. But more importantly than that, I make more money in my companies than I do in wages at Service Titan, but I really like working at Service Titan because it's the one thing that I feel like can really change this industry in the longer term, not in the idealistic sense that people put on the freaking mission statement, all that stuff. I think of it this way. Look at 20 years ago in our industry. Look at how many companies had their own tech training programs. Look at how many companies were over 10 million in revenue. Look at how many companies could provide their employees with health, dental, and vision insurance and great benefits and everything else, great incomes. 401ks, all that stuff. The reality is not that many. There's actually in my town in Fresno right now, there's a lot less companies on record. There was 245 companies on record in 2010. There was 235 in 2018. I can almost guarantee we're probably down to about 200 in Fresno now. There's been a lot of consolidation that's happening. And people say, oh, you're trying to kill the small guy. No, a lot of those are small guys that grew up real fast. And the old generation has kind of passed. And the, bottom line is the companies that are there are getting stronger, faster, more efficient, which has been allowing them to give better benefits, better wages, everything else. We talk about the tech shortage in the United States. The tech shortage doesn't go away because governments get involved and tell more people to go to school for tech schools. It also doesn't get fixed by creating more tech schools. We got tons of tech schools. Guess what? There's a bunch of empty seats in them because no one wants to go to them. So guess what? Building more doesn't solve anything. What I realized was if we had great jobs with great wages and people wanted to be in this industry, guess what? There'd be a lot of people in this industry. I mean, other industries did it. Lawyers, look at them. Like in the 90s, being a lawyer was the cool thing and everyone wanted to be a lawyer. And then all of a sudden we got too many lawyers and now my buddy paints houses for a living and he's a licensed attorney. Like when you get too many lawyers,
Jesus.
we got the problem. Wow. We don't have enough technicians. Well, guess what? If being a technician was a cool thing that made great money and supported a family and everything else, we wouldn't have this tech shortage. So it's right. Bottom line is I think if we're truly developing the tools that help people to have stronger companies, bigger companies, more efficient companies, they're going to be able to pay their people more. Because before, in any other industry, when you get a shortage, you raise the wages to pay for them, right? Well, contractors really didn't know how to raise the wages and they didn't really know how to turn a big enough profit to pay them more. They couldn't. I think we're doing that now. I mean, I'm on a text thread with 6 different contractors. I think the smallest one in our group is probably 30 million in revenue. I'm probably one of the smaller ones, to be honest. And literally the other day we're looking and we're talking about how many techs are graduating from our schools right now. And I said, hey, I had 15 this week. I've got 6 more graduating in 6 weeks. One guy said I just graduated 20. One guy said I graduated 10, whatever. And it dawned on me, every single one of these guys has a tech school. And I thought, 20 years ago, the chances of that happening is like slim to none. There were a few big companies that did, and that was it. And you paid a school to take your people, or you just hope the local community colleges handled it. But now our companies are getting big enough, strong enough, efficient enough to handle their own, and they're picking up where the public sector is left off. And I don't think that happens without software and tools today that are available that weren't in existence 20 years ago. So that's what gets me up every day. And it's like, wow, we're truly going to change this industry. I mean, I think we're going to do it in a way that no one has really thought about before. And I think it's already happening, quite frankly. It's really amazing to see.
Well, you're starting to see the shift right now with everybody in there, like as you said, the training centers, right? And they're having this movement towards creating a massive culture. And you look at the guys, the people that are in the Facebook groups and active and doing what have you, they're the ones that say, I have no issues recruiting people, are the people that have a great company culture in place. They have these great jobs. They have these great wages. They have these training centers. They take care of their people. They give them great paid time off. They give them great benefits. The guys that are having troubles filling the jobs don't have those things.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to is how can you create a winning culture to be able to attract the right talent?
I was sitting in a meeting once and this guy said, hey, we were talking about culture and there's things you can buy at your company that kind of help the culture a little bit, but just don't just buy stuff to like put a Band-Aid on it and try to fake a culture. Like, oh, we got a cool, video game arcade thing. Yeah, that's great. It's because the boss yells at us every day.
Football on your lunch hour.
Yeah. But it's, yeah, exactly. If you have a good culture, you can add those things, right? So we have a couple of electronic massage chairs that'll massage you. We have a pool table. We have arcade games. We have a vending machine that's free. We have a full gym, showers, everything, right? And we try to have that be supplemental to help the culture that already exists, not the other way around. But anyway, I was talking to a guy about it at a conference, and he's like, I'm running a business, not a daycare center and after school program. Yeah, you're just trying to attract the millennials, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, don't you have anything to say? I'm like, no. Like, I want you to keep that mentality. He's like, why? Yeah. And I said, well, because here's how it is. One, we need people in our industry. And I don't know how many baby boomers you see out there that are trying to get in this industry now. They're all millennials. So, of course, I'm going to try to attract the millennials. Thank you very much. That's exactly what I want to do. I mean, how many 60-year-old people are like, hey, I'd like to make a career change? Like, almost none, number one. And number two, I hope you stay that way because if you look around, you're the guy growing the slowest and we're all growing faster than you are. Now, he was bigger than us. He's actually twice our size. And now if I look back, he's actually smaller than we are now. And there's a reason for that. It's like you cannot continue to grow with these old school mentalities. And quite frankly, 20 years from now, the ideas and mentalities I have, they're going to have to change again for whatever comes 20 years from now. I think the only thing we can make sure we stay on is like willingness to change and willingness to adapt to make sure your employees are happy and coming to work and wanting to, work with you.
Well, it's a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And how can you, if you stay with a fixed mindset, you're never going to change. You're never going to adapt. Yeah. Looking, you mentioned 20 years from now, and I'm going to ask you to pull out your magic crystal ball here for a second and predict the future. What are some of the things that it's actually going to be a two-part question. So what are some of the things that you're seeing for the future and where the industry is going to go? And what are some things that some of those people who are struggling to adapt to technology, what can they do to bring that on board to their organization?
I think the next big thing, we're going to talk about this, Vahe's whole speech about it, and mine as well at Pantheon, mine and a guy named Sender. We're going to be talking a lot about data. And the thing is that data has been such a big thing in every other big industry. I mean, look at Amazon, how they use artificial intelligence and things like anytime you go on Amazon, it doesn't matter what you buy, at the bottom it's going to say, people also recommended these, or also bought these things. And it's basically helping you buy more, right? Facebook. I mean, gosh, I cannot tell you, everyone knows, like you're thinking about whatever, they know exactly what's going on with you and they know exactly which ads to give you. And you're like shocked. Like sometimes I'm mad. The other times I'm like, yeah, but I really do want that pair of pants. Like I have to have it. And I'm glad you found it for me. And I'm glad you know me that well, Facebook, by the way, is so good. They can write algorithms to do things like figure out when you're going to start dating someone, and they can do it with very good accuracy. They just haven't released it. It's crazy because they can see how close you are to that person, how often you're exchanging, or liking their posts, how many times you're within their proximity, all that stuff. And because they can use machine learning and artificial intelligence, they can figure stuff out with high accuracy. Well, in our industry, we're not even close to that yet. We have a pretty big data science team that I oversee. Well, I don't oversee. I work with them in Armenia a lot. We have a data science team in the US as well. And our data at Service Titan stands apart from a lot of others simply because we have very segmented industries that we focus very hard on. A lot of other softwares have gone for you can be carpet cleaning company, a maid service, a air conditioning company, a pool service company all at once. And there's a place for that, right? A lot of those, that's where the big market is, right? There's 2.3 million home service contractors in the US, and there's very few of them over the 10 million range mark. And that's Service Titan's sweet spot. It's 5-10 million up in revenue. But because we have that, we have great data on what they have, and we can give them great data on what they should be doing. We'll be talking about Pantheon. I don't want to release everything, but the bottom line is we can easily give you suggestions on what you should be giving your customer. We can give you suggestions on what your pricing should be in a given area. We can give you suggestions on all that stuff because we've been building that. We've been working on it for the past year. Like I said, I don't want to release everything that they're going to say at Pantheon, but bottom line is that data and being able to utilize that data very easily within software without having to have a data science team at your own office working 24/7. I think that's the next piece. They say data is the new gold, the new oil. It's like, it's our industry. It's coming. It's a year or two around the corner. And quite frankly, if you don't, when they can start targeting a specific customer for exactly what that customer needs and marketing to that person for that thing, because they've got all the data from their database. By the way, you guys as marketing companies, we're definitely looking for more Service Titan certified providers that are certified in marketing that can help them get that data out of there and drive it to where they need it to go.
That's definitely a conversation that we'll have offline. For that. So the other part of the question, and I know you said your sweet spot's 5 to 10 million, so presumably so that somebody that's coming over to Service Titan already has some form of technology that they have in place, and they're transitioning from whatever software out there to Service Titan. Ignoring that part of things, and you look at some of the older, we just actually have a client right now. He's coming from pen and paper, yellow pad technology. He's implementing QuickBooks Online, and he's going into a software system provider for that. And he's 8 trucks, right?
You said 8 trucks?
Somebody that is new to something like that, they're bringing on this technology. How is it best for somebody to get that imported into their business and get started with something like that if they've never done it before?
Yeah, I mean, you said that guy's 8 trucks, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Couple things. One is that you can get really scrappy when you're starting. Typically on Service Titan, we don't recommend they come on until they have at least 3 technicians in the field, someone in the office. So you got like 4 or 5 people in your company. And that is a pretty big milestone for a lot of people getting to that size. Typically, because you can't find the value out of Service Titan that you would get for the amount of money you're going to have to pay at that point. Once you get bigger than that, you start getting that value. I think when you're small at that point, there's a lot of free things out there that you can do at very low cost. Roland Lightenberg was on earlier, and he mentioned Roland's from, House Call Pro. And there's a lot of softwares out there that we've even recommended in the past for the small, 2 tech, 3 tech shops, 1 tech shops. They're just getting off the ground and getting in there. I think what I would recommend to people, though, is make sure you're utilizing everything you can at your fingertips. A lot of people, they get into software and they use just the bare minimum. I think at Service Titan, one of our biggest challenges is trying to help people get everything they can out of it. And it's just a ton of features, and we've got to do better at what we're doing right now, making sure people know what's available to them so they can get set up. Yeah. But there's awesome things out there, even from basic Google Calendar stuff. I can't tell you, we were running Google Calendar at Lee's in the early days, just to book our install jobs and track them until we got, something better. I think that's the way to get going. I'd say definitely focus on the stuff that matters, though. Don't focus on, I got guys talking about, I see it on Facebook all the time. What's the best set of gauges to buy your technicians? I'm like, this doesn't matter. I've seen successful companies use S-Man 4s. I've seen successful companies use analog gauges. I've seen successful companies use, the iManifold, the whatever. Sure, talk about it. Usually technicians should be talking about that kind of stuff. Maybe you want to standardize it in your company, but it should be a quick answer and move on to the next thing. The things you should be worried about, that you should be driving, is like, what's our average ticket in the field? What's our conversion rate? What's our, total revenue? That's the stuff that matters. The big business owners I talk to and say, what gauges do you supply your technicians? They won't even know. That's not even on the map. You got to stop being a technician and start being a business owner and start thinking about the things that actually drive profits. And sure, one of the things you got to do to drive profit is have a solid process so that customers get good customer service every time, so they return. But the reason that should be is because you're looking at your customer acquisition costs and how much more it costs to acquire a customer that does to keep them. Like, you need to be thinking about those things. You don't need to be thinking about, like, what this is the coolest screwdriver and having a 20-minute long conversation on Facebook about whatever, tool you're using or whatever. So anyway, I'd say definitely focus on the growth when you're there. Focus on the things that matter, especially the 1-2 man shops are usually a technician to start with. And that's why you're able to start your shop. And hats off to you, because that's a ton of work. But just make sure you make that switch and realize, hey, I'm a business owner now. This is what I've got to do. I've got to figure out not how to fix the air conditioner the fastest. What I got to figure out how to do is build a process so all my people can fix air conditioners quickly and get it going. And if it means starting off with pen and paper, great, do it. And then get to where you can be. I mean, really, to get on service site, you need 3-4 techs tops, and then make that switch and start driving it. And then focus on things that matter. Build your business, build the processes. In that case, implementing your stuff on Service Titan, House Call Pro, Field Edge, whatever it is, I don't care. But focus on that and really realize, like, hey, this is building my business. Building this process within this software, whatever platform it is that, not trying to run the next call.
Well, and you look at a big thing is that people, when they start their tech, they're working for somebody and they're like, all right, well, we should be able to just start a business. It's not really that difficult. They're just going to go forward with it, but they have no fucking clue how to run a business, right? And there's a lot of great resources out there to be able to help out. And so if you listen to this show, you're like, okay, that's awesome. He just says start being a business owner. Cool. Well, how do I do that? Go back to the part that we talked about, finding a mentor, right? Finding a program where you can get involved in, and success leaves clues. And we know that it always leaves clues. And you can look back and say, okay, well, somebody somewhere somehow has done exactly what I've done and exactly where I'm at. They should be able to help me out. And when you do that, you can compress your time to become a better business owner yourself, right? In addition to that, are there any other things that you would say to somebody that wants to be more of a business owner and less of a tech?
Yeah, I think at least the one of the first steps that I see, especially with smaller businesses, is that is typically pretty straightforward to do, that almost no one's doing at the small levels, is basic budgeting, right? And as soon as I say budget, they think, oh, that means cost cutting. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, okay, let's plan. How much revenue do you want to do for the year? If we're going to do that much revenue, how much do I need to do per month? If I'm going to do that much revenue and I know my average, let's say it's, I'm a smaller business, so I want to do $20,000 in revenue a month. And my average job is, $500. I know I need to do 40 jobs. And then how many phone calls do I need to generate to get there? If I have 40 jobs that I need to do, my conversion rate when I'm in the field is only, 75% or whatever. That means I'm just trying to do math in my head, but it's not going to work very well. But let's just say it's 60 calls I have to run.
I wrote down those numbers earlier. Don't worry.
Yeah.
If I was 65, I had to do it manually.
Yeah. So then it's, then I'm going to go back and say, okay, then, and I'm going to look at how often, if you don't have the data, like just say, okay, out of the calls that come in, what percentage of them can I book? You'll have better data if you've got better software in the future, but let's just say you can book 75%. So then you're going to go back in and say, okay, I need like 100 calls to get 60 jobs, to get 40 that actually sell at $500 a piece, to get 20 grand of revenue. What do I need to do to get 100 phone calls this month? Okay, well, that means I need to generate like, 4 a day, and okay, what am I going to do? And you may want to talk to a marketing company. You're probably going to start with the basic stuff. You're going to go on Google My Business and make sure everything's posted there and you got pictures set up and everything else. You might put some money on Yelp or Google Ads or something like that. And you got to learn those things, the basics, at least when you're first starting and you're really small. Or just hire somebody that can do that and run your numbers and just get down to it. And then put in all the costs of these things and figure out what your profit's going to be. Half the time you're going to realize that your business model is not even going to work, because even if you hit your goal, you're still losing money. And if that's the case, you're going to have to raise prices. So I think that's the biggest piece, is like start with a basic budget, because that's the plan for everything. Anytime I go and buy a new business, that's the first thing I do. And then we start giving all the managers, all the people in there, like the map of, okay, this is how much revenue we want to do. That means this is how many calls we have to generate. This is how many jobs we have to run. This is what our closure rate has to be. This is where our average ticket has to be. And then below that, here's all expenses. And then here's what our net profit should be. And every month we're going to track to see if we're on track for that. Everything else revolves around that piece. I'd say if I was going to do one thing, that's the first thing I do as a business owner.
And there's a lot of great resources out there in terms of building a basic budget. And you're also talking reviewing those too, right? So knowing what a profit and loss statement is. And so if somebody says a PL, okay, well, what's a PL? If you don't know that, find the resources to be able to help you out, because you talk a lot about the majority of businesses fail because of improperly managed cash flow. I mean, there's some other factors in there, but cash is king. You need money to run your business. And there's some use cases where you might have debt, as a play there, but majority of times you want cash. And if you don't understand your numbers, you're not going to be able to have a business from there. So super huge and impactful thing on that. I know that
easy book, by the way,
knowledge here. So if anybody does want to get in touch with you, we're going to shamelessly plug you here for you. So if you want to reach out to Tom, you can reach him out at servicetitan.com. You can also hit him up at thoward@servicetitan.com. Don't worry, we'll put these all in the show notes. If, of course, you want to creep out Lee's Air Conditioning, do that facebook.com/Lee's Air Conditioning as a way to see what they got on the go. So there's how you can get in touch with Tom.
Thank you. By the way, there's an easy book. It's called, I think, Warren Buffett and the Interpretation of Financial Statements or something like that. It's like super, super low level financial statements, the basics. It's really small pages, really easy read, like a paragraph on each page about a principle. And it's like 100 pages. So it's like 100 paragraphs. Something about Warren Buffett, or how Warren Buffett interprets financial statements. Obviously not the level of Warren Buffett, but if you just want basics on financial statements, that's how you go. You mentioned earlier, like some people choose not to go to college, that kind of thing. I would say education is super important. Doesn't have to be college, but you got to get that education one way or another. Like you can get it through books, you can get it through mentors, you can get it through college, you can get it through a combination of all three. But I'd highly, highly, highly recommend it. It's no different. You would never send a technician out in the field without teaching them how to service a unit. You would never send a technician out in the field without teaching them how to change out a condenser fan motor, or swap out a capacitor, or at least take a reading on the amperage of the motor or microfarads on the capacitor. Why would you ever try to run a business without learning first the basics of the business? I mean, you got to do those things. So I'd highly, highly recommend putting the effort there.
100%. And even just understanding a cursory or superficial view of your finances as well. Like you don't need to be an absolute master in knowing and reading your general ledger, right? You pay the right people to be able to do that, but you need to know what's happening in there so you can make adequate business decisions to move your business forward. So Tom, it has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. I know that we want to wrap up with our famous last question. And since I do have my lovely assistant here beside me, he can't hear what we're saying because we've had technical difficulties, but he can finish off with our last question.
All right. So Tom, I'm curious, what's one question that you wished people would ask you more, but they don't?
Gosh, wish they'd ask me more of. Tough question. I Yeah, I think what you guys start out with, what are the hard things that you run into? What are you most scared of? Because I think people look at it and think that like, oh, you grow your business and it's all great and easy, but the reality is it's much harder. There's devastating times where we get into my biggest fear is that we're going to run into an issue in our business and I don't have the answer. And and it's happened multiple times and there's no one else to like, I can't blame my boss. Like it's me at the end of the day. And in all of those times when I don't have the answer, usually I just get back to the fundamentals of like, this is what we're supposed to be running the business. I don't know why we have to have these team meetings, or I don't know why we have to track this number, or I don't know why we have to do X, Y, Z, but we should. If I get back to that, then usually it solves whatever problem I have in the first place. I don't know why it did, and I don't know how it's connected, but I got to the fundamentals and I fixed it. But anyway, that's what I wish people would ask. Usually they're asking me like, what new trick do you have? What's the silver bullet to make me successful? That kind of stuff. And there just isn't one. It doesn't exist.
Well, I love that because it's a real conversation, right? You talk about what's the, what are you scared of the most? What are you scared of? What are you most scared of? And, those things within your business, from that. And it's a real conversation. And I think when people have real conversations, you have more rawness and you uncover things. But when you go back to those basics, I'm a hockey fan. I follow hockey. I've reffed hockey. I reffed a high level of hockey. And you always hear them talk, and this is really any sports analogy, but you go back to stops and starts, right? That's like the first thing that you learn in hockey is how to start and how to stop skating. And so that's just the going back to those very basic fundamentals, because when you do that and you practice the basics, then you can get into your next level shit. A lot of times people try to go to next level and they're not ready for it. And then that's when they have bigger issues from that. So I do want to say one thing, Ishmael Valdez. This dude is the reason NextGen got out of 2019 slump and came back to the biggest, fastest growing in the U.S. So obviously,
thanks, Ishmael
is showing you some love there.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Thanks, bro.
Well, no, yeah, I'm sure he'll see that as well. But
he did 57 million in revenue in 2021, by the way. It's crazy.
And he's on pace to shatter that.
Yeah. He is. He's going to clear 100 million this year.
Wow, so. Clearing 100 million this year. That's to be at 57 million. Let's just pause and say something. You're at 57 million and you're going to finish over 100 million. You're going to double your business. Traditionally, when businesses get that big, that growth curve is hard to sustain. Yeah. He's doing it again and again and again. It's just phenomenal to see.
He'll be at 100 million by his 7th year.
Wow, 7 years, 100 million.
Yeah, 0. He was in his garage 6.5 years ago. It's crazy.
Hey, you know what? There's a lot of great companies that started in garages.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and he's been an expert at R&D, right?
Yeah.
Taking what other people are doing and implementing it even better. Right.
Yeah, I don't think he likes the words rob and duplicate, but I think he's the master of it. Like he's, and by the way, he's one of them that he's not shy about saying he doesn't know something, and he'll just go hire the person that does, and he'll learn it. He's like, man, why am I so stupid? I'm like, Ishmael, yeah, quit calling yourself stupid. Like you're doing $100 million in revenue this year. Like it doesn't matter. Like everything, dude. We all have our shortcomings, but Ishmael, like he's super good at marketing, and he's really good at recruiting. That's what people don't know about him. I would say he's even better at that than he is on marketing. He's really good at marketing, and that's what's fueled his growth. And all the other stuff like the finances and the HR and all the other stuff, outsource it and hire somebody to do it and move on.
And he's not afraid to be less stupid or less afraid to be stupid, right? He's okay to say that he's not the smartest person in the room. And I think any successful person that has success at a high level understands that too, that they're okay not being the smartest person in the room.
With him, I've told him he likes money more than he fears being stupid. So he's like, if he's got to look stupid to make money, fine. He'll stand up, say, how do you do that? Like, I don't know what that means. Right. Tell me. And that's what, has driven him to that point, I think.
Yeah, and that's a great question. Like if you're ever in a conversation with somebody and they're saying something that's above your head, that it's okay to say, I don't know what that means.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't matter how many people in the room. Who cares?
I'm sure you can keep going.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't matter. So I don't know what that means. But see, the thing is if you're asking that question and there's a lot of people in the room, I guarantee that there's other people in the room who are thinking the exact same. So you now just help them out by you asking the question and putting your pride away.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Tom, for taking the time to chat with us.
Thanks.
No worries. And until next time.
All right. We'll see you guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks for watching another episode of HVAC Success Secrets Revealed. Before you go, 2 quick things. First off, join our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/HVAC Revealed. The other thing, if you took one tiny bit of information out of the show, no matter how big, no matter how small, all we ask is for you to introduce this show to one person in your contacts list. That's it. That's all. One person. So they too can unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Until next time, cheers.